Okay, and then I'll share the PowerPoint. Let me just put it up.
That's fancy, Jam.
Hmm.
It says live on Facebook in the corner.
Oh, yeah. Let me just make sure that it's completely there. Okay. Let me share the PowerPoint, and I think we'll be able to get started. Okay, can everyone see the PowerPoint okay?
Uh-huh.
All right, great. We'll go ahead and get started. I think the first thing that we're going to talk about is going to be Grow to Succeed, but of course, thank you to the panelists for joining in. The first part, we're just going to have you, Marilyn, go over what is Grow to Succeed and, what we're going to be talking about tonight. So this is the first part, what is Grow to Succeed? And it moves forward, but Marilyn, if you want to go over Grow to Succeed and, what we're going to be hoping to talk about tonight.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Marilyn Blackburn. I'm program coordinator, supervisor of Grow to Succeed. Um, Grow to Succeed, there's this thing you can read right here, but I'll just, based on what Grow to Succeed is, I'll just tell you. Grow to Succeed is a vital program for trans and non-binary folks in recovery and with drug and alcohol substance abuse. Rather you're clean or not clean, I open with open arms. That's what Grow to Succeed. We're not here to judge. And it's basically, we have groups. There's different things that I can get you into, like rehabs and stuff like that. But it's basically a safe place for trans and non-binary folks to come and get clean and sober and get their lives together, because there's really nothing out there that I've heard of, like definitely in Pittsburgh, that has anything like that. So it's very important. So that's basically what Grow to Succeed is. If you want to go ahead and read a little bit at the bottom, you can.
Okay, great. So we're gonna go ahead and go into what we're talking about. We have two panelists today, but then Marilyn, if you want to share a little bit of your backstory to kind of get us started about what we're going to be talking about today.
Uh, a little bit about me. I'm 32 years old. I started substance abuse and alcohol abuse at a young age, 18 years old. Probably younger, really like 17, to be honest with you. My first drink started out as weed and alcohol, which transpired into pills, which transpired into even heavier things such as heroin and crack cocaine. And that's basically my story. I got clean and sober many times, maybe for a week, maybe for a couple of days, but nothing longer than, I want to say, a month, if I even was blessed enough to get that. I got clean 2.5 years ago, was serious about my recovery. I went to rehab. I took everything very seriously. I did. And I kind of realized what my purpose was to help other trans folks and non-binary folks that are struggling with addiction, because there was many rehabs I've been to where I was judged and wasn't placed in the right space. I didn't deal with that in my last rehab where I got my life together in, but I just seen a lot of things. And I said that, when I do get my life together and I'm ready to do something different with my life and I'm serious about it, then I'm going to make a change in the community. And that's exactly what I did. So that's about it.
That's great. And we have two panelists here with us today. We have Lewis Mitchell and Dylan Kapit. I've never said your last name, Dylan, so let me know if I mispronounced it.
Kapit.
Kapit. Okay, so thank you both for being here. We're really excited to hear what both of you have to say on the topic. I'm going to have each of you do basically the same thing that Marilyn just did. Let us know what your background is and kind of how you fit into this story. So, Dylan, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. I'm Dylan Kapit. I use they, them pronouns. I am a doctoral student at the University of Pittsburgh studying special ed. I have been in Pittsburgh since August, and I just hit 6 months sober from alcohol. It was my New Year's resolution actually to be done with alcohol. I had a much better relationship to alcohol pre-pandemic. And then took the pandemic kind of hard, the move to Pittsburgh kind of hard, and was not in a good place. So trying to get better about what I'm putting into my body and my health and why I was choosing to drink. It's been a journey, but here we are.
Thank you, Deb.
Yeah, thanks so much. And then, Lewis, if you could give just a little bit about your background and how you see yourself fitting into this.
Sure. Howdy, everybody. My name is Lewis Mitchell, Reverend Lewis Mitchell, actually. And my sobriety date is November 23rd, 1983. So I am 37 years and some change, clean and sober. And when I got sober, I was 23 and not yet a man. And everybody I knew at 22, 23 drank and used. And so the idea that I would stop was really ridiculous. And I wasn't sure I wasn't sure I was an alcoholic. I got sober in the 12-step rooms associated with alcohol, but I knew enough about my life to know that I was on my way. And the only thing that I could imagine was that there was no way around it. So I was either going to get sober or just have a messy, drunken, awful life. So I tried to get sober. I started trying to get sober in 81, and I was in and out a few times. And then November 23rd of 1983, I crawled my way back into the rooms, really sure that it wouldn't work for me because it was a whole bunch of, mostly white people clapping and cheering about some nonsense. And I thought, y'all are out of your minds. But one day at a time, I did what was applied and I did what was suggested. And so far, it's working still one day at a time. And so I'm deeply, deeply grateful. I suspect that all that I am and the fact that I'm still here can be directly attributed to the fact that I didn't drink and use one day at a time for 37 years. And I took those principles found in the steps and the traditions and the concepts, and I applied them to my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Reverend. And so we'll get started. We have a couple of questions. Of course, it would be great if there are, other things that come to your mind if you want to talk about, but we do have a couple of questions to kind of guide you. So, we talked about this a little bit, each of you talked about it a little bit, but for the whole panel, including Marilyn, where do you stand in your recovery today?
I'm gonna go ahead and let the panelists speak. I stand really good, but this time I'm just gonna let my panelists speak.
Yeah.
Feel free to go first.
Sure. I don't totally know what I don't know the answer to this. I think I feel very new to this journey, but I don't know where I stand in terms of my recovery. Very, very new to it. A lot of talking with my therapist, but I think feeling good in my choices.
So the timing of this is actually quite extraordinary. I'm going to tell you a little story, a very recent story, as in yesterday. So this may take a minute, but let me go through this. Yesterday, I'm on my flight back from my mom's house. I'm in seat 3D. I booked the first class ticket because they were cheap. And I thought, okay, let's see how this works. And the guy sitting next to me was drinking double bourbons like Prohibition was going to start when we landed. And the strangest thing happened to me. Again, I'm 37 years sober. I spent 12 years sober as a bartender. Cool, no problem. But that bourbon was smelling good to me. It was calling my name. It was saying, you up in the air, ain't nobody gonna know. You know what? Maybe you've been sober long enough. Maybe you were just young and stupid and you're not really an alcoholic. It ambushed me. I was like, what the hell? Where is this coming from? And as I'm sitting there kind of pondering this discussion I'm having with his bourbon, I did that thing I was taught to do, which is I said a prayer. And I'm like, okay, God, I don't know where we're going with this, but damn. This guy next to me, it's a 2-hour flight, right? So this guy next to me spends the rest of that flight hurling into a plastic bag next to me, like just sick. And I said, thank you, God. Thank you for that answer. I'm sorry he made himself sick, but it answered my question about whether I needed some bourbon. So where I stand in my recovery today is that it really is only one day, sometimes 1 hour at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I have a stack of days, there is nothing between me and that first drink except practice and grace.
Absolutely.
Oh, thanks so much. And yeah, thanks also, Dylan, for your answer earlier.
I want to say something on that. It's just so funny to me how, like being an addict, it doesn't matter. Like, you know what I mean? Like you were saying, like you have that long clean or whatever. It just shows you that you have to stay on top of your recovery because it can creep up out of nowhere, rather if it's a thought in your head, which a thought in your head could go from thoughts to cravings. And, like that's real brave for you to share, that story, because I've had moments like that, where I can sit there, if I'm watching someone drink or just to be like, oh, well, that looks so good. Or maybe I'm not, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not an addict. You know what I mean?
Right.
I can have that drink. Who's going to know? But at the end of the day, I know who's going to know. God's going to know because that's who my higher power is. Right. I'm going to know because the guilt's going to eat me up inside. And then two, my program. The folks that I help, they're going to know because I'm not going to be able to help them. You know what I mean? If I resort to alcohol again or resort to drugs again, it's going to be just a nonstop cycle right back to where I was at square one. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed at all. So I'd rather keep moving forward. So I definitely agree with you. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Marilyn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've got another question coming up. Okay, what made you want to seek recovery? I think anyone can jump in if they feel they have a good answer for this.
I'm going to answer that one first and get it out of the way. I didn't want to seek recovery. I didn't want, in the program, they say if you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it. Well, I certainly didn't want what they had, but I didn't want what I had either. The idea that I couldn't manage my own life and that I was, basically I wanted to stop being messy, pissing my pants and throwing up. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to drink like civilized people, but I didn't see how that was possible. And so the alternative was continue living my life as a mess or try something new. I'm not sure I wanted recovery. I didn't think recovery was possible. I just didn't want what I had.
Dylan?
I really resonate with that. I also was not super interested in recovery. But I think it was a combination of a couple of things. One, the desire to stop using alcohol as a coping mechanism for feelings that I needed to deal with. Two, I think I was not interested anymore in nights that were blurry or struggled to put together. And three, the move to Pittsburgh kind of sucked for a lot of reasons. And I was really lonely. And so I turned to alcohol as a friend. And as I started realizing that I could actually make friends here and seek out other connections, I didn't need it as much. I also think that my parents were really pushing me to get sober. I'm on a bunch of psychiatric meds and my mom's a psychiatrist and really was like very concerned about those things interacting. So I think a couple of things, but yeah, I really relate to Lewis's answer. I didn't want to seek recovery at all, but I'm happy that I did.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for those answers. It's really good to hear. So for the next question, during active addiction or however you would call it, what did you find to be the most difficult while seeking recovery?
Hmm. Hmm.
I can go. Well, it turns out that if you are not using alcohol to avoid your negative feelings, then when you have negative feelings, you actually have to deal with them and process them and face them head on. So that was tough because turns out that I had been using alcohol to not acknowledge my negative feelings, and that was much easier. So I have worked really hard and had a tough time, but worked really hard to kind of look my demons in the face and deal with them.
Hmm. During active using and addiction, I think the thing that was most difficult for me while seeking recovery was my peers. Like every kind of LGBT space that I was in involved drinking and or using, all of them, all the time. That's where we went to cry and grieve. That's where we went to celebrate. Everything was attached to partying. And so trying, already feeling like an awkward freak anyway, not being able to dull that in community was really hard. And it meant that I had to build a sober community around me because literally there was nothing that we did that didn't involve drinking and using. If we went bowling, we had beer. If we had sushi, we had sake. If we, everything. I didn't know how to have pizza in my first year sober because pizza went with beer. Like I didn't know how to eat. I didn't know how to dance. I didn't know how to have sex. I didn't know how to do anything because everything was attached to partying. And that was the most difficult thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point about, our own community.
And it's wild because, like, just a lot of things you realize, like becoming clean and sober, like, it's like really, it is. It's like starting from square one. It's like starting your life completely all over because you realize, like, something like you said, just as simple as a piece of pizza. I'm used to drinking that with beer, just simple stuff like that. Um, Actually, I'll dive into this question. I'm not going to be answering all these questions. I'll leave that for y'all, but I will dive into this one. During active addiction, what did I find most difficult while seeking recovery? Was I'd have to say just everything. It was everything for me. What I think about was everything for me. It was just everything. People, places, things. Knowing when I got out of rehab that I really didn't have any happy memories of anything. Because I can simply, like, it was funny. I was just downtown last week and I was like looking around and I'm like, I noticed things that it was like I was talking to my other half and we're just talking about things and like I couldn't really share any happy memory that I had. It was like I was looking at the streets of downtown. I'm like, okay, well, I used to be down here panhandling or whatever kind of hustle I was doing because there was many of them. There's many of them.
Right.
And it was like no type of like happy memories and stuff. So it's really like starting back from square one and trying to build a whole new memory and stuff. And that goes with active addiction and it goes with getting clean. They kind of go hand in hand. Yeah. That's all I want to share.
Yeah, thanks, Marilyn. Okay, we've got another question coming up. Okay, so not so much a question, but let's talk about relapsing and triggers. I mean, Marilyn, do you have any starting thoughts about this that you'd want to hear feedback from our panelists on?
For relapsing and triggers, again, triggers can be anything. It can be a person, it can be a thing, it can be an object, it can be a smell.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, do we have examples of things that we found?
What you got to do. It can be part of recovery, but it's not necessary. True. That's how I like to word that. So y'all go ahead.
Well, I just talked about kind of a trigger yesterday on the flight. But you know what's weird? What's really weird to me is that I expected awful things to really be triggers, but awful things have not been my biggest triggers. Celebratory things have been my biggest triggers. Like, you know, my dad is, I came of age and came into adulthood at the time of pandemic one, the AIDS pandemic. So I have more dead friends than living ones at this point in my life. I've lost so many people. And I thought that would be the hard thing to stay sober through, but it isn't really. Like, I expect to want to drink when crappy things happen. And I go, okay, I want to drink. Cool. Let's keep it moving. But when things that are great happen and people are celebrating with alcohol, that's more triggering for me. Like, I want to be able to celebrate with them. Damn it, what do I celebrate with? A cup of coffee? That sucks. What the hell, you know? But, you know, like my first couple of years, I was in and out, but I was in and out primarily because not only did I not think it would work, but secretly deep down, I didn't think I was worth recovery. I didn't have the self-esteem to think I deserved a good life. And I will tell you now, I could not have dreamt. I didn't have the imagination or self-esteem to dream of the life I have today. There's no way I could have imagined the life I have today. It's that good. That doesn't mean I don't have problems. I'm not rolling in money. My budget is like the national, you know, national debt. I'm in deficit spending. My health is good. I have my daughter will be 9 years old next week. I have a daughter. My mother loves me and refers to me as her son and wants to be around me. I get to minister to a congregation and be fully and completely out about all that I am. I didn't even know I could tell the truth like that. Like, there's no way I could have imagined it. So, like, I'm so glad that I got through those first few relapses and was able to stick and stay, mostly by grace and good practice, I assure you. But triggers can come from anywhere. Like, you know, I am more likely to get triggered by a flat tire than a death. You know, and inconvenience can make me so angry and annoyed that I want something to take the edge off. Big things I expect to feel crappy, so somehow they aren't as bad. I don't know how to explain. It doesn't make any sense, but that's just been my experience.
It makes a lot of sense. It's different for everybody. It's definitely different for everybody.
Yeah.
Dylan?
Yeah, I feel like I don't know that I have a good answer to this because my journey has been so short and new. But I have a lot of social anxiety. So it definitely, like, in situations where I am anxious about being around people, I will have a drink. It soothes my social anxiety, especially in places where I'm around alcohol. And a lot of my social anxiety manifests in anxiety about dating and sex. So that has been historically my coping mechanism. And I'm in a place right now where I am, like, very newly involved with someone, and it's been very interesting for me to navigate that without alcohol. So I think my trigger is social stuff. But I definitely am. I'm doing it. It's just it's tough.
Indeed.
All right, so moving on to the next question. Now, what are some of the major takeaways that you would have from your experience with recovery? What have you learned during your recovery?
I mean, I think that the biggest thing I've learned during recovery is that I actually don't need alcohol to, like, at all to deal with hard things. I think I was under the impression that I did, and I don't. And it turns out that I can do hard things without it, which has been, like, really revolutionary in my adult life. I did not really start drinking until I was 21, and then just told myself it was fine because that's what adults did. And it has been very tough to realize that, like, I can do hard things without alcohol, but it's also been really freeing and revolutionary and beautiful to know that I can do hard things without alcohol. And, you know, I'm at a place that I think that I didn't know I would be a year ago. And that is very cool.
Absolutely.
Good. Yeah, what haven't I learned in my recovery? I've learned everything. I mean, it's both been recovery and also aging. So I got sober at 23 and I'm 60 now. So I've learned a lot. I learned that humility is not a crime and that everybody, and I mean everybody, has shitty days. And so I don't have to treat people poorly because they're treating me poorly. Maybe they're having a bad day. I learned that really stupid slogans really work sometimes, and they're really very meaningful. I mean, I think I've learned a deeper way of loving, starting with loving myself enough to practice the words no and maybe, and to have some boundaries. I've learned to forgive. I've also learned to admit when I'm wrong and to try to do something about it. I didn't learn those things because I wanted to. I learned those things because they came from doing the steps, which I also didn't want to do, but that's what people told me. Like, you can be dry or you can be sober. If you want to be sober, you got to do these steps. And I was like, shit, okay, fine. And you know what? They were right, in my opinion. And so I've learned everything I know. I've learned in recovery. I've learned to forgive the parts of myself that were deeply damaged in the course of getting to and through recovery. I've also learned that recovery doesn't make you a perfect person. I am just as likely to fuck up now as I was then. I just do it sober. So I don't get to have a big head about it. I just get to not drink or use while I go through it.
Absolutely.
And I cuss a lot for a minister. So if that's offensive, sorry, y'all.
Look, nobody is perfect on this panel. It's a bitch trying to be perfect, right? We're just here. We're in recovery, and we are recovering. So
yeah,
you're fine.
wow, it has been. I mean, I just, I'm in COVID and everything. I've been doing online meetings, and I'm looking forward to getting back to in-person meetings. But I tell you, with these questions, and they're great questions, I don't often stop and think about, like, what have you learned? What has this been like? And I don't know who I am not in recovery now. I mean, I've been sober longer than I drank, finally. I mean, I started at 10, I stopped at 23. And I've been sober well over half my life now. And so, my daughter's never seen me take a drink. And when I stopped drinking, there was nobody who hadn't seen me take a drink. I don't care who you were, my pastor, my mama, my grandmama, anybody that knew me has seen me take a drink at one point or another. And now, I'm sober longer than most of my staff has been alive. So it's like, it's a bizarre reality that I never thought I'd have. And it kind of snuck up on me. They say, if you don't drink, you don't use, and you don't die, you get to be an old timer. And I guess I'm an example of that.
How does that feel to you?
I am so awed and grateful. I don't even have the words for it. I just, when I was in my first couple of years, I heard this woman speak, and she said, when you come back from the dead, you ought to have a little bounce in your step. And so I feel like every day I need to have some bounce in my step and to be exemplifying gratitude. And, yes, I have problems, but that's not the point. The point is I'm still fucking here. How did that happen? Like, really, this is, my ex-wife and I are best friends. We met in recovery. We married in recovery. We're divorced in recovery. We're family for life. We know how to end a relationship. We learned that in recovery, that just because the relationship is broken doesn't mean that that person isn't valuable and worthy of love. It means y'all wasn't compatible. I mean, she broke up with me, and she said, and I know this is off topic a little bit, but she's also in recovery. So I'll just say, she said, you know why I'm breaking up with you? And I said, no. And she said, because you would just stay and be miserable because you made a commitment, and we both deserve better than that. And I said, you know what? That is what love looks like. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd never seen relationships like that in my life, where people could break up and still love each other so intimately and wonderfully that you just want the best for the other person. I'd never seen that modeled anywhere in community or in my family. And so recovery has given me everything.
That's part of the promises, right?
Indeed, indeed. And I want to tell you, they're real in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for the panel. I think it's, related to, what Dylan had said, but also, of course, for everybody. In my own friend group, I have seen a lot of people becoming more aware of themselves and their relationship to the substances that they use. And several friends of mine um, have decided during the pandemic to pursue recovery or to pursue abstinence. And I don't know if any of you have had a similar experience, but you know, do we think that there is something larger happening for people, and if so, what factors might exist there?
Hmm. I'm not smart enough to know if there's like some worldwide watershed moment happening, but I do know that during pandemic one, during the AIDS pandemic, people made a lot of behavioral changes out of terror and fear. And they weren't all bad behavioral changes, and they weren't all good behavioral changes, and some of them stuck and some of them didn't. But people that want to do something different around their drinking and or using, um, it's one of those sayings, again, one of those cliches. It's not for people who want it. It's not for people who need it. It's for people who want it. Like if you want this thing, you can have this thing. Everybody that needs it ain't gonna want it, and it's not instant oatmeal. Your first trigger might be the one that takes you out, and that's okay. Take the lessons you learned and rock those out. But I hope, and I'm being selfish here, I hope that as a community, as an LGBT community, as a trans community, that we begin to look at the ways in which we have self-medicated and the ways in which that's no longer working for us as individuals. I mean, it's still true every event I go to, and more weed than anything else. I mean, people start smoking weed as soon as they get up and they don't end until they go to bed. I'm like, well, do you get high? Like, what's the point? Like, when do you arrive somewhere? And so I don't get it because, for me, it was about getting high. For them, I don't know what it's about. But I think it's a way to self-medicate and to numb a little bit. And I ain't mad at you if you need to numb, but you can't even imagine some of the things you might get if you stop numbing.
Jim, I think for me, my answer to that is like suddenly everyone was alone with themselves. And I think that like, I know a lot of people who have come out during the pandemic. I know a lot of people who have gotten sober during the pandemic, myself included, or chosen, to stop doing something or to start doing something. And I think there is something about just like being in solitude and spending time with yourself and being like, okay, here's me alone in my apartment. How can I be, how can I tolerate being around myself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and not seeing other people perhaps. And I know that was what happened for me, but I know a lot of other people who've made some major life shifts in quarantine, I think, because we are all suddenly like being forced to be like, oh my God, what do I value in my own life, and how and why, and how can I, like, what do I want to come out of? The pandemic isn't over, obviously, but like, what do I want my life to look on the other side of this? And I know for me, like, drinking was a social thing, and then suddenly I was drinking alone, and I didn't like that. And I didn't want to be drinking alone. I didn't like what I was dealing with bad feelings drinking alone. And so it was much more suddenly about, okay, I want to deal with the bad feelings if I'm going to sit here alone with myself. But I know a lot of people who I think just suddenly we were all forced in solitude and had to do a lot of thinking about our values and who we are and who we want to be, going forward. And so I think that that's why so many people have come out or started being sober or, chosen a different life path, I think, is because I know a lot of people who've like gone through career changes during quarantine. I think it's just like a lot of, okay, we're all suddenly sitting alone with ourselves, and what choices are we making when we are, in solitude.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks, John. And thank you, Lewis, for your answer too.
And you'd like me to answer that?
Yeah, if you have an answer, for sure.
The pandemic. What has the pandemic done for me? The pandemic, it's done a lot, really. It's let me learn myself better, and it's pros and cons, really. I've noticed a lot of the good things about myself that are good, but also I learned a lot of bad things about myself as far as if it's character defects or if it's just behaviors that need adjusted. Because like again, nobody's perfect. And I realized that coming into recovery that nobody's perfect and I'm not perfect. And I realized just some things that need change and some things that are okay during this pandemic. I learned myself a little bit better. And basically that's about it. I mean, the pandemic really gave me a good time to get a big ass mirror and put it right there and just look at myself and be like, okay, this is what we got to do. This is what we're going to do. And moving forward. So that's my answer for that, really.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's this connection between what Dylan was saying and what Lewis was saying, where, we really should look at ourselves as a community. It's hard when you're in a community when you don't match with something about you doesn't match with the rest of your community, and they're all going along in one direction. You say, I need to go in this direction for myself. And the pandemic has kind of isolated people and allowed them to see where those directions might be and where it is that they need to look at themselves, and they can't just go along with every other person, where they need to see where they need to make their own paths. So that could be part of it. Go on. I believe we have another question. Well, it sounds like, Lewis answered this question in that everything is what was accomplished since recovery. But, for Dylan and Marilyn, if you wanted to add in, since recovery, what have you accomplished? What has been something you're really proud of?
I'm gonna let them two answer the question because in the bottom it says it does say what have you accomplished since recovery, but it says personally, that's dealing with like your personal life, but also professionally. What has it done for your professional life as well?
Dylan?
Yeah, I think I'm still trying to figure out the answer to this question and excited to see what the answer is to this. I think that my brother's getting married in August, and I have some very complex feelings about this wedding for a lot of reasons. And it is going to be like my first big family event with no alcohol. So I think I will have to report back. But I think that like something I have accomplished already that I'm hopeful to continue accomplishing is like I can have a hard day and not have a drink. I can have a hard week and not have a drink. May sucked. I can have a hard month and not have a drink. And so I think that like Lewis said before, that like taking it a day at a time, and I'm really trying to be like, if I have a hard day and I don't have a drink, like that's a success, even if it feels small. So yeah, I think that going to things that I know will be hard for me and not drinking, dealing with days that are hard and not drinking, stuff like that.
I've already answered the question, so I'll be very brief this time. And one small offer of advice, Dylan. When I was newly sober and I had to go to events like family events, they would tell me to buddy up and take a sober friend as my date. So I wasn't the only one there not drinking, and take your own wheels. So if you need to get out of Dodge, you can get out of Dodge and not have to depend on anybody else. Those were the two things they told me that worked really well.
I've been doing a lot of substitution behaviors. Like I like buy a lot of like flavored seltzer in bulk, a lot of like fake soda and like other stuff. And every time I'm like, I would turn to alcohol to solve the problem. I just like pick up a can of seltzer that is very innocent, and I'm replacing behavior. So I think the plan is I am bringing my best friend as my +1, who is very aware of the situation. And I think we're just gonna like bring a bunch of seltzer, and if I'm having a hard time, we can like go have a can of something that is harmless. But yeah, thank you.
Great planning. Yeah, I've accomplished everything thus far, personally and professionally. I learned how to be hurt and not lash out and not drink or use. I learned how to hurt others and tell the truth about it and not run from it and make amends. Professionally, I was 23. I didn't have a damn profession. So like everything professionally has happened since I've been in recovery. Um, and I've been able to retain all the things that I've learned along the way, not taking other people's inventory, taking my own inventory. I've had to grow up in recovery. So, those first few years when I was busy patting myself on the back about how awesome I was, I've had to look back at those and go, nah, not so much, dude. These things are awesome. These things, you need to let that shit go. Even in recovery, that's not a good look. So, yeah, everything that I am and everything that I know, I've pretty much accomplished in recovery.
Also, Dylan, do you have like a support as far as recovery support?
I have a really good therapist and some really great friends.
Okay, after the panel, we should connect because we do have Grow to Succeed groups.
Sure.
That we have every other Sunday. Actually, there was a group before this panel that I had, and that'd be awesome for you to join in. Because just a word like of advice for me is like it's important to stay connected, to have people that are living and doing their lives sober and clean, that are practicing the recovery tools, you know what I mean? Like teaching you tools, practicing the tools, doing steps. Because I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you what to do, but I'm just giving you a word of advice. Being around when you're working the steps or you're working transitions, because Grow to Succeed, that's transitions, you'll learn a lot about yourself and how to stay clean. When you start surrounding yourself around positive folks, when you're not connected with that, it's easily to drift off. Even if you are connected, you can find yourself drifting off. That's why you want to have a sponsor. Make sure you have a sponsor. That's very important, to have someone to call that they can be there. It don't matter if it's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. You hear me? They will answer their phone if you are having a craving or you feel triggered, and they will help you. If it's to come and get you, or if it's just to talk to you. There is a support out there, and I would love to, reach out with you and do that kind of stuff. You being fresh in the recovery and stuff. And also, I'm gonna tell you one last thing that someone had told me. I took offense to it, actually. I think it's pretty funny right now because I don't know why I got offended, but I was new. But it was they told me to, take the cotton out your ears and put it in your mouth.
Yes,
When you're, to listen. When you go to these meetings, to listen a lot, because you want to listen and like get a lot of knowledge. Because I know me personally, I like to talk. So I went into the rooms. I would just blah 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 blah. I'm just talking away. I do everything. The light was on me. I was like the center of attention. But someone called me out, and I was glad that person called me out because it taught me a lot. It got me to where I'm at today. So just some words of advice and some tools for you to put in your toolbox. That's all.
That cotton thing, they've been saying that for as long as there's been a president, I'll tell you.
Absolutely. I was so mad when they said that to me. I was like, wait, who is he talking to?
Right,
but it was nothing but, constructive criticism.
Right.
Constructive criticism. And I took it, and I'm where I am now. So, all right, moving forward.
Yeah. I want to say another word about sponsorship. And I think therapy and therapists are great and awesome.
Absolutely.
And I also want to put in a plug for good and trusted sponsorship, because your therapist is your whole life, but your sponsor is designed to help you understand the program of recovery that you are in, to the steps, the traditions, the concepts, what it means to be of service. There were a couple things that I heard when I was brand new that I swear to you were true. One, service keeps you sober. And the second one is a grateful heart will never drink. Those two things I have held onto for my entire life, and they have worked. So being of service is always important. Saying yes, not habitually. Most of us, when we're new, we say yes to everything, and then we get to learn moderation down the road. But starting your day with a gratitude list is going to get you, even if you've had a shitty day or a shitty week or a shitty month or a shitty year. Starting your day with a gratitude list, ending your day with a gratitude list can really help you realign your vision. And there's nobody you need to compare yourself to except you.
Absolutely. You have anything to say, Dylan? I know that was a lot to take in at one time.
Nope. I'm all good. Just processing the advice.
Okay. All right.
All right. Let me see. I believe we have at least Well, I don't think we have any other formal questions. I don't know if there's um, anything that panelists want to say. I think we can go take a look at what Marilyn's put together for Grow to Succeed, and panelists, if you want to think about any like last questions, last comments to one another or to anyone out there listening. This is Grow to Succeed's program, and it talks about the 12 transitions of recovery. It's something that Marilyn, you've taken and tried to create a system that could work for people who are trans and non-binary. So, Marilyn, do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Sure. I can't see it.
Oh no. Well, here we'll go through them.
All right, here we go. All right, I can see that. We're good. We are good. I got like a little small laptop, y'all. It's this little baby laptop. All right, so the 12 transitions of recovery. Well, the 12 steps outline the spiritual paths of recovery for individuals. The 12 transitions is also known as traditions, provide the principles that keep our group healthy and grounded as a whole. Newcomers to 12-step groups often will focus their recovery on 12 steps, as the desire for personal transformation is powerful. But applying these next principles to your life will keep your recovery on a steady pathway. The following are the principles that will define our program. You can use them as a guide to implementing the 12 steps in your life. We following everybody?
Yes.
All right. So does someone, because this is kind of ending kind of early, so won't we all take turns and read these?
Okay. You first, Dylan.
Okay. 1, unity. Many people try to recover from addiction on their own, but isolation often makes it more difficult to abstain from drugs or alcohol. Transition 1 is based on the fact that unity experienced within a group will allow you to make more progress in your individual recovery. The aim of this is to ensure cohesion while honoring all voices in an open dialogue. All members of the group must be willing to accept the majority opinion and work together to put any decision into action, limiting divisiveness and conflict. While you want to reach your own individual goals of sobriety, your journey can become aimless if you place the idea of self over others.
Thank you.
2, leadership. Transition 2 expands on the idea of dynamics by reminding those in recovery that there is no individual authority or governance in 12-step groups. There are group leaders who are entrusted with the responsibility of serving those in the group, but they do not make decisions for them. This ensures that no member has authority over the group, providing a sense of fellowship to all members, no matter their background, education, professional expertise, race, gender, etc. There may be group members who are more willing to share their stories than others, and they may even be appreciated silently by some as spiritual leaders, but they, like any other member, do not govern.
I think also as we go through these, if anyone has comments about how they feel they fit or even don't fit with their experience, yeah.
Transition 3, eligibility. The Transition 3 focuses on the freedom to choose to join a recovery group. For Alcoholics Anonymous, this principle states that the only requirement to join is a desire to stop drinking. For members of Al-Anon, the only requirement is that you have a relative or friend with an alcoholic use disorder. This was created by the founders of 12-step programs to protect the group from outside influences and to ensure that the meetings would maintain their primary focus. It is about committing to the recovery process. Can I take a pause right here? Because I got something to say. All right. So are y'all familiar with the Big Book?
Yeah.
Well, I know you are. Lewis. So, okay. So something that I'm trying to teach folks that I do with my clients and stuff like that with the Big Book, because I was really scared at first to bring the Big Book into, my program, just because, it does say it's very sexist a little bit, because it talks about he. It's always he. Now, I have to get a better understanding, actually, of why it says he a lot in that book. So through
I can't hear you anymore. I don't know what happened. I can't hear you.
like,
Here we go.
they're suffering from alcoholism or drug addiction and stuff like that. So like I do teach the big book because I think it's important, because it's like sometimes you ever heard that saying, pay attention to the message and not the, or pay attention to the message and not the messenger. So I kind of look at it as that. I kind of like overlook all those pronouns, because I mean it's kind of hard for me to replace every pronoun when it says, yeah, I'm like, okay, they or she, or but it does help in recovery. It really does. Practicing the steps is very, very important also in recovery. And then coming into the transitions does help. The traditions and the transition, it does help with recovery. But I don't know. I just felt like saying that. I guess the spirit moved me. I just felt like kind of put that out there. But yeah.
The big book is a hot mess. It was written by, mostly one person, Bill Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
and written at a time in the late 20s, early 30s, when everything was decidedly gendered and heteronormative. And so it's like any other thing written in that era. It's going to be written in a way that requires some updating for current audiences.
Isn't that the truth?
And in reality, it's not a perfect book. It's much, in my opinion, oh Lord, I'm gonna piss people off. It's much like the Bible. He was doing an inspired work, and that's not the end of the story. But like my bishop likes to say, chew the fruit and spit out the seeds. There's a lot in there that has helped millions of people find recovery. From AA has spawned every kind of anonymous that you can imagine. And so the skeleton of what's in that book, in the 12 steps and the 12 traditions, the skeleton is really solid, even if the meat around it needs to be sheared off and rebuilt, and it needs to have transition surgery, so to speak. You need to take some parts and get rid of them and add some other parts to make it work. But to throw it all away would be to throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. If one can manage to read that book written in 1939 and update it to your current needs, chew the fruit, spit out the seeds, the value you'll get out of that will be life-changing and life-saving, in my opinion.
And also I noticed too, because I used to think like, I was like, okay, coming to AA, I was like, my personal recovery in the rooms, I'm like, well, I was this hugest drug addict, but alcohol was always in my pocket with it. So if you really pay attention to the big book and really read it thoroughly, it does say stuff about drug addiction. It does speak about drug addiction. If you read certain things, it talks about addiction just in itself.
Right.
Just in itself, but the particular person that had wrote that was an alcoholic. But it does state that there is drug addiction and that you can learn a lot out of it. So, and that's kind of where it goes hand in hand, where some folks say, oh, I'm AA or I'm NA. If I could one day just bring it all together, we're going to put Grow to Succeed, NA and AA, and we just going to be one big happy family. I don't know what day that would be, but, that would be awesome to have an event in person of folks from AA and NA, Grow to Succeed, and everyone come together. I think that'd be awesome, because it's kind of like divides everybody with this, almost like this recovery clique. Almost this recovery clique. Well, I'm AA or I'm NA. Oh, I'm Grow to Succeed. And that's
Al-Anon. Yeah.
I don't have that with my program. That's why I practice both principles in this recovery program, because I practice from both principles. Because we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that.
It's really, really, really important. And, I'm kind of a history nerd. So when you start talking about the history of AA, I, of course, had to research the history of AA, because I wanted to pull it apart and remake it because my ego said so. And then I had to leave it alone because my common sense kicked in. But, it's kind of like if you're in a town, like Pittsburgh is a big city, right? But if you're in a small town, there's one bar. Everybody go to it. Gay people, lesbian people, trans people, friends and family, everybody go to that one bar. Once that town grows up and there's like, one bar that's for softball players that wear leather and one bar for, lesbians with short hair. Like you span out into all these groups, but when there's very little. So when the book was written, this was the only thing. The Washingtonians had ceased to exist anymore because that had been, early prohibition, and this was later. And, now that we have so much more diversity, there's room for all of us. And so I think that what you've put together here in terms of the transitions is actually quite brilliant and amazing. And it allows everyone to come in, AA, NA, CA, MA, Al-Anon, OA, all the A's. If you have an issue with a behavior or substance in your life, these tools are there for you if you want them.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Quite brilliant. Well done.
Yeah, we'll roll on to the next one. Autonomy.
I think that's you, Dylan.
For autonomy, transition 4 gives our individual groups the autonomy to vary our meetings, including where they will be held, where they are open or closed, how to begin and end meetings, the program content and topics discussed, and how to spend funds as needed. Because of this, no 12-step group will be identical to another. At the same time, this principle cautions against straying too far from the program's basic tenets, which can turn you rudderless.
Yeah. That really tied into what you were just saying.
Yeah. 5, carrying the message. While individual group members bring their own needs into meetings and grow at their own pace, the group should have but one purpose: to carry the group's message and to provide strength, comfort, and hope to others struggling with addiction. Transition 5 highlights this sole function of recovery groups, reminding members to pay it forward. Love, service, and support, that is the focus of this process.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Transition 6, outside enterprises. Transition 6 seeks to preserve the integrity of the 12-step program and maintain the primary spiritual aim by preventing groups from endorsing any outside organizations and causes. As an individual, members of 12-step support groups are free to endorse, finance, and affiliate with any organization, religion, political, I can't pronounce that word, y'all, party, charitable or civic organizations they wish as a group. However, such endorsements could lead to misunderstandings or conflicts, particularly as many outside organizations attempt to use the name of Alcoholics Anonymous or Al-Anon family groups to promote their treatment, programs, or therapeutic approaches. Mm-hmm. Again, the primary focus must always remain on recovery and opening up a space. Otherwise, or outside organizations would only divide or deviate from that path. Remind us to remain focused inward.
So a word again about history. This particular tradition from the AA 12 traditions began for two reasons. One, when Bill started this thing, there was a notion, hey, I should charge people for this. Mm-hmm. And Bill's peers were like, nah, nigga, you ain't in charge of all of this. You know what I mean? And so he had to back up. There was also a very famous baseball player who got sober, who started attaching, AA to his name. And so when he relapsed, it made it look like AA didn't work. And so this tradition was born out of a sense of autonomy and protection for the principles of the group over individuals from the group. Both Bill Wilson, who wanted to market it himself, and this ball player who was going, hey, I'm in AA. And so when he bit the dust, people were like, oh, wow, AA must suck. This, celebrity didn't make it. So even now, most of us in recovery don't learn the traditions. So we're all over Facebook and Instagram talking about AA. That is not what this tradition is for. You can say you're in 12-step recovery, but the whole point of anonymity is that AA should never be attached to an individual or an enterprise. So let's say, for example, and I'm using this as an example, Donald Trump Jr. becomes a member of AA, and starts putting AA on all this stuff, that's going to change how safe people feel coming to AA meetings. If I do the same thing, that's going to change how people feel about coming to AA meetings. So it's important that we separate the individual from the entity so that the entity can maintain clarity and be pristine regardless of the politics or personhood of the individual.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That's the history of it. And, you know, often when I was in meetings, we would say that we practice these traditions, not for ourselves, but for that addict being born tonight so that this thing can survive long enough to be there for them.
Dylan, I think that's you.
7, self-supporting. By being self-supporting and declining outside contributions, the group protects its basic fellowship structure and basic spiritual foundations. Transition 6 makes it clear that members of each group can choose whether or not to place money in the basket for contributions, but also ensures that the fellowship does not become involved with outside issues or conflicts by accepting outside contributions. If such contributions were accepted by the group, its members might feel obligated to make some kind of concessions to the individual or organization making the donation, which takes focus away from the program. This also encourages dignity and responsibility within individual members by reminding them that they are in charge of their recovery, not anyone else.
Oh, looks like I think this one skips one. But this one wants to go to 9.
Yeah. Was the last one 8?
The last one was 7. I don't know if they're out of order. No, I think 8 got skipped, but we can go to 9. I can find a way to pull up 8.
All right. 9, organization. Transition 9 states that 12-step groups will not be highly organized. Again, this is designed to keep the emphasis on true fellowship. There may be committees or a secretary, for instance, to help with handling contributions. Unlike other principles, this one does not require much from its members. Instead, reminding them that they don't have to answer to any authority and can focus on the commitment to recovery.
Did we find 8?
I'm looking now.
Okay. 10, outside opinions. By choosing not to express opinion on outside issues such as politics, alcohol, reform, or religious 12-step programs, avoid controversy, both publicly and within the fellowship itself. Transition 10 helps members to maintain focus on their common purpose, yet again. Dylan?
11, public relations. Anonymity in the media protects not only individual group members, but the fellowship as a whole. Public relations and 12-step programs is about attracting members, not promotion. Transition 11 also stipulates that no one's full name will ever be released, nor will any group names. For example, if a member wishes to discuss the benefits of being a member of a 12-step program with the media, they should identify themselves with their first name only. This helps ensure group members feel safe, sharing what is truly in their hearts and on their minds.
And 12, anonymity. Last but not least, a hallmark of 12-step recovery programs is the offer of anonymity to participants. Anonymity helps protect the group and keeps the focus on principles rather than personalities. Transition 12 states that the personal anonymity should be maintained at all levels of participation in fellowship, including meetings, in 12-step work, and even in sponsorship. So kinda on this one. So in the original anonymity, it was that you should maintain personal anonymity at the time, press, radio, films, and TV, and now, of course, the internet. But in a closed meeting, it is perfectly okay to use your full name so that others can find you. It's not public in a closed meeting. So for example, I might say I'm Lewis Mitchell so people can find me after the meeting. I don't want nobody going, hey, you know, Big Black Lewis, you know who I'm talking about? No, just use my name, you know, but this is not about keeping secrets in the rooms. This is about making sure that, unlike that ball player, our names are not attached to any particular recovery group for the protection of the group and to keep us from trying to let our egos make us the center point of that group.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Reverend. And I'm gonna pull up 8, but I'm gonna have to stop sharing my screen to do that. But while I do that, maybe we could talk about, Marilyn, what inspired you to create something that was for trans and non-binary people and for everyone here. Have you had any experiences where you really felt that there was a need for a space for recovery for trans and non-binary people specifically?
Wait, say that again.
Sorry, I had said, what would, has anyone had an experience where they've really felt, I need a space that is specific for trans and non-binary people for recovery? For you, Marilyn, what inspired you to create a space like this or a program like this that's for trans and non-binary people? And then if Dylan and Lewis have anything to add on that type of experience.
Um, Basically, I mean, it was just being out there and like having no one that understood me. Like, because I mean, there were so many different, I mean, there was, how can I put this? When I was out in the streets, you had, it was a different life than being in the community drug world. I wasn't in the community drug world. I went into the actual, just the drug world, period, just running with everybody, no matter if you're cis, trans, whatever, I'm just out there. But noticing that I was like basically one of the few folks like myself and being judged for that, not only in the streets, but to go into rehabs and be judged for that. It was discrimination, really. It was heartbreaking. It hurt my feelings. I'm a person. I hurt my feelings and I didn't feel comfortable. It did not help me want to get clean or stay clean. Cause I'm like, what the fuck? Like, why should I, these people don't care about me. You're trying to put me with men. Like, you know what I mean? I remember there was this black guy who was just like, oh yeah, just put her with the niggas. Well, it wasn't even put her, put him with the niggas. And I'm like, rather if I dealt with that in rehabs or in jail, I said there has to be a stop to this. There has to be a change of like, hold up, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let's put some Maryland in it. Because I'm like, there has to be a change and no one is taking that step forward to trying to change this. No one's doing that when it comes to the recovery road. And I'm like, if I was like, I told myself, I prayed to God and I told myself, I was like, as a self, and I asked God, I was like, if I ever can get myself together enough to stay clean, be serious about staying clean, get my tools, put it in my toolbox, and, just give me the knowledge to be able to help folks like myself that are struggling with drug addiction and alcoholism, that's what I would want to do. That's exactly what I would want to do. And just to be able to carry a message on to let folks like myself and of the community know that you can be trans, you can be non-binary, anything, but like, you don't have to put yourself in a category. All because you're not cis doesn't mean you can't be clean and sober. Doesn't mean that you can't feel safe in a place. Literally what Lewis said, it's not all about Maryland. Grow to Succeed is not about Maryland. It's about Grow to Succeed. It's about growing. That's why it has that name. It's about growing and succeeding in life, period, point blank. I'm not promised tomorrow. I hope to be here tomorrow, but I'm not promised tomorrow, but if something was to happen to me tomorrow, Grow to Succeed would still be here. The transitions would still be here. Everything that's put in the docs, in the computer and how the program runs and how to help folks, that will all still be there. So that's important to just be able to use my knowledge and my tools and put it into reality for someone else, because I'm going to grow old. Someone else is going to come in and do this. Someone else is going to come in and do this. So that's the point of Grow to Succeed, is just for it to keep on going, just keep on going, and to be able to keep on sharing and keep on helping as many trans and non-binary folks that's out there that's struggling with addiction, and to feel comfortable and feel safe enough to be able to stay clean and sober and know that you're not going to be judged, because being judged is one of the biggest things that's in our community. gives us fear to, strive forward to say, I want to be clean and sober, because who are they going to talk to? Where are they going to run to? Right. Where are they not going to be judged at? Where are they not going to be misgendered at?
Right.
The space
is so safe. Because just because someone's sober doesn't mean they're not a violent trans hater, honest to goodness. The reality is that in most programs, we're still gendered incorrectly and disrespected. I had the good fortune of being one of the initial staff for the Morris home in Philadelphia, the first in the country residential treatment facility for trans and non-binary people. And it was really important for us to, it's still there, the Morris home. And it was important that we had a place for, it was mostly trans women, the first round of folks, to come in and be in recovery and be respected for who they were. And, because each group is autonomous, some groups may have religious overtones that will say, hey, part of your sobriety, you need to be who you were born as. And I'm like, well, this is who I was born as, bitch. Don't get me started on theology. I will help you out with that. But, it's important for us to have a place to wrestle with who we are and not our gender identities. That's not what we're wrestling with. We've already answered that question. We're wrestling with other things. And so to be in places that focus on that. And I then would say many, many, many years ago when I started transition, I remember at the Living Sober conference in San Francisco, I was brandy new in transition. The ink wasn't wet, the ink wasn't dry on my own identity. And one of the guys there said, we'd like you to be one of the speakers at the men's group. And I wept. It was really one of the first times that I felt acknowledged in my identity by my peers. And so I've always been very out when I speak, not because that's a part of my journey, but because I have the privilege of disclosure. And if I don't tell people, they won't know. Mm-hmm. It's just, nobody ever comes up to me and goes, oh, is there an F on your birth certificate? That never happens. So if I don't tell people, then other people in the trans community can't find me. And that's especially true in recovery. And I'm deeply grateful for this thing which you've created and the legacy that you've begun. I'm super grateful for you, Dylan, doing the work that you're doing to live fully in your life without those hidden places for you to sink into when anxiety strikes. I'm so very proud and excited for both of you.
Thank you. Thank you. And you said this place was called the what again?
The Morris home.
And where is this at?
Philadelphia. That's
where you're at, right?
No, I am in Seattle.
Because I would like to connect with them. We'll have to talk about this.
Yep.
We'll connect. I would like to visit there and just check.
Yeah. Well, it's changed a whole lot, and God bless them. They're still doing their thing. But it was named after Niza Morris, who was a Black trans woman who was murdered in Philadelphia. And it is still there.
Okay.
So if you Google Morris Home, it'll give you all the contact information.
Okay. And again, I want to thank both of you for coming onto this panel. Louis, you've shared a lot of wisdom because you're definitely, like you said, an old timer. I hate that word old timer. That's like calling you old, but I'm just saying you shared a lot of strength and hope on this panel, and that's what this panel's here for. I love it. Dylan, I'm proud of you for coming on here, and you need to give yourself a pat on the back because it's one day at a time, one second at a time, an hour at a time, just for today.
Yes.
Okay, just for the day, and you're sober. Just
Oh, Marilyn, you froze for a second.
Yeah.
But while Marilyn's frozen, I'll just bring out the 8th step that we missed. We've talked a whole lot about which was giving back.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, Reverend Mitchell, you've talked a lot about it. I'll read it out. There's a saying in 12-step groups, in order to keep it, you must give it away. Transition 8 allows contributions to be used for support services while the groups provide only non-professional mutual support, which ensures 12-step programs remain unpaid, non-professional programs. 12-step groups are different from professional recovery services offering the support that members feel in sharing and listening to each other's stories. Anytime a newcomer reaches out for help, they will receive it free of charge. In turn, members freely share their own experiences, strength, and hope with the newcomer. They help themselves and reinforce their own recovery. This principle focuses on this cycle, creating a culture of appreciation and giving. I mean, I think a lot of course, this comes very close to what the panelists and Marilyn are doing today. And I really have, appreciated it. I appreciated it last time and this time. It's so eye-opening, and hopefully others will watch and see through your experience that they are not alone in what they're experiencing.
And also, Jam, I want to say thank you. You deserve your roses too.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you, Jam, for coming on here for moderating this. Thank you.
Yes.
I really appreciate you for taking time out of your day to do this.
Oh, always.
Thank you.
Well, if panelists have any last thoughts or comments that they want to share, I mean, I'm gonna check in first, Dylan, with you. Do you have any last things that you want to share or anything?
I don't know that I have any last things I want to share. I want to say it's cool. When I came out at 18, like that was 2000. I don't remember, but I didn't know you could be older and trans. I think I just assumed that when you hit when you hit 30 or 40, you went back to figure, you were done, because I didn't know any older trans folks. So it's always really meaningful to me, to hear from older trans folks, because I think I couldn't conceptualize it in my brain, right? I didn't think you could be married or have children or hold a job and be trans. So it's very meaningful for me to be around trans folks who are not in their 20s, which is the majority of my circle as someone in my 20s. It's very meaningful for me to know that there's a future out there for me. So thank you.
And clean and sober at that. That is amazing.
Right.
That is amazing.
Keep coming, y'all. I'm old, and I can call myself old because, when your mama calls you old, you kind of have to go with it. I told my mom I was middle-aged, and she said, "No, son, you're old." I was like, "Oh, damn. Okay." So I'm stepping into my well-seasoned life. And I want to say, I may seem very wise at this moment, but all of my wisdom is borrowed. It is all things I've learned by listening and learning, sometimes in the rooms, sometimes not in the rooms. But, one of the things about being in recovery, that whole cotton out of your ears, in your mouth thing, that's applicable in and out of the rooms. Everything I know, I've learned from somewhere by paying attention to the lessons of others. So I'm not that wise. I'm just a good sponge. And so, yes, we don't die. We don't all die. Some of us do, but we don't all die. Some of us live, and we have families, and we get married, and we get unmarried, and we get remarried, and we learn how to date again, and we have children, or we adopt children. We become parents. We become people that get to sit back and watch others lead. All of those things are possible, and they're possible without taking a drink or a drug. Keep coming. It is well worth it.
Thank you so much. Well, I think on that note, we may be coming to the end. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you, Marilyn, for hosting. It's always, so interesting and good information to take in.
Absolutely. So
All right.
thank you all. Everybody have a blessed rest of your evening. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate it. And I'm going to be reconnecting with both of y'all tomorrow. So be looking forward to my emails.
Anytime. Enjoy the rest of your day. I only have a little bit more work to do, but to do, I can call it a day.
All right. Thank you.
Take good care.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.